Hey guys, so what I want to run through is the Magic 8 script. When we're prospecting, when we're speaking to landlords, when we're speaking to estate agents, it's important that we have a value offer, and that is definitely what has penetrated my success. I've managed to penetrate through landlords' mindsets, through estate agents' mindsets, and everything in between, and ultimately it gets you places. Now, the biggest issue that I hear and the biggest problems that we seem to all face is obviously the rejection, the no's, we don't do that, it's subletting, etc, etc. And when we're looking for the rental SA strategies or the rent-to-rent strategies, then it's hugely important that we get through the gatekeeper, that we manage to get our message across, because what we do offer is hugely powerful, and I firmly believe that, and I think if you do genuinely believe that, then you will get a lot more success as well. So 8 bullet points basically, you need to master them. The basis of what we do, especially around serviced accommodation, is we house construction workers. So my script is something along the lines of, we work with construction companies up and down the UK, and when they're in our areas, we house them. They're looking for a home away from home, and ultimately they come on a Sunday, Monday night, check in, they leave on a Thursday or Friday morning and check out, and then we send our cleaners in, we turn the linen around, and then they come back to a fresh apartment or house the week after. And that's typically how we run. We're looking for these sort of weekly long bookings. We've got the contracts coming in through various sources, including LinkedIn, and we actively prospect these type of companies, as well as the ones that we're working with. Plus, what we do find happens is when these guys are on site working with other companies on site, they start talking about what digs you're at, where you stay in, etc, etc, and then the referrals start to happen, and that's how we need more and more accommodation. So ultimately that's the position I'm in right now, and that's why I'm reaching out to you to see if you would be open to allowing me to house these people in your accommodation. Now, the benefits for yourself are, number one, there'll be no voids. My company is the one that will back this. My company is the one that you'll be having an agreement with, and I've got a lot of time in my company. I've put a lot of effort into my company, so I'm not going to be running away from my bills. Did you know that during COVID, every single landlord got paid? I did not ask for a rent reduction because my business is solid and I can, cash flow myself through those sticky situations. Hopefully that is the worst that's ever going to come for my business. So I can guarantee that there's going to be no voids. And number two, as I mentioned earlier, the guys tend to check out on a Thursday, Friday and go home, so we clean the properties weekly. We are looking after the properties, and our cleaners are going in there and updating us with images as well as cleans. Now, tenants don't do this. You'll be lucky if a tenant gives that property a deep clean once every few months, if ever. If you're a landlord, as you are, and I'm sure if you've got multiple properties, you'll have experienced walking into absolute shitholes, and the cost of putting them right is more than sometimes the rent that you've collected for them, or the profit that you've collected over the period. So especially if you're having short-term rents where they might be turning every 6 months. So what we do is obviously our cleaners are going in, they're getting a spring clean plus a bed change, all the bathrooms cleaned, all the kitchens done, the ovens cleaned, etc, so that they're ready to come back for the next guest. The guys coming back the next week, they just want to be able to check in and lay their bags in, watch a bit of TV, go to bed and repeat the process. So it's these places have to be clean. So by us keeping on top of the cleaning, it ultimately leads into point number 3, which is there's no end of term refurbishment for yourself. Now, I'm a landlord myself, and I understand what it's like to get a scruffy property back off a tenant, and we're looking at 1,000 to 1,500 quid per turn for a bad one, new carpets, new wall paints, etc. If you get a really bad one, a cannabis farm, or just a really bad tenant that's abused the property, then the deposit protection, or the deposit that you got in the protection scheme doesn't even come close to repairing the damage, and ultimately you're eating into your net profit again. So come back to point number 1, there's no voids. You're going to get paid all the time, but the best thing is what you are getting paid is pure profit, because you're not going to have to eat into that to repair your property. So we will also look to refurbish your properties. Now, the standard properties that we take over are for standard tenants, magnolia walls, very basic, not so nice kitchens, and we need to improve that slightly to be able to attract our guests and make sure that we're staying in line with the competition. As such, obviously, if you're willing, I would like to maybe spend a bit of money on your property. I'd maybe like to, you can go into detail. So maybe you want to just add a nice kitchen bench on top of the current kitchen worktops. Make sure that it's a nice oak colour rather than a rubbish marble effect or whatever it might be. You might want to put a nice lino floor down in the bathroom just to cover the horrible tiles that they might have in there. And again, you've got to be kind of telling them what you're going to do without crucifying their property, because at the end of the day, that's their property, and some landlords are emotionally attached to these things. Some aren't. Some are like me, and it's just pure numbers. So but we would look to, we'll be putting wall art up, we'll be putting nice curtains up, etc, etc. I have spent up to, I think, 7-8 grand, about the most I've ever spent on somebody else's property, but I have done it, and it works for me as a business. So ultimately I'm gonna, and I'll be leaving you with that benefit as well. So it's not like I'm gonna rip all that out when we're finished. You'll get that benefit, so you're gonna get an upgraded property. So that's the first 4 points. So no voids, cleaned weekly, refurbished, no end of term refurbishment. Any damage that does happen during the tenancy, we will fix. So any guest damage, we are fully responsible for. So if a guest punches a hole through a wall, or maybe not the best example to use, but it does happen. If a guest spills something on the carpet, or a guest damages the kettle, then or the oven, we'll fix that. If it's the responsibilities lies with you, it's standard bigger stuff, roofs, boilers, pipes, things like that. However, if we've got like a leaking tap, for example, where a tenant would normally call you out for, then we've got a guest coming back in that next week. I would more than likely just make that decision, or I do make that decision, to just get my plumber in there. We just get it sorted, and I just take that cost on board. So there's a lot of wins for the landlord when they're using us, and this is why I come back to that. My value is so much more than a tenant or what an estate agent can offer, and I truly believe it. So that's the 5 points. Point number 6, there's no tenant finder's fees. So they're never going to have to pay a tenant finder's fees. Now typically, since the tenant finder's fee ban, all the fees are now levied pretty much onto the landlord, and it's typically a month's rent. So if they're getting 600 quid or whatever it might be, and they're having to find tenants every 6 months or every 12 months or every 14 months, they're going to be paying that £600 to an estate agent, plus the couple of months voids while they've got getting it all turned around, waiting for the tenant to come in, etc, etc. So I've recently just moved. Obviously we're in between houses at the minute, and we're renting a flat. Now I agreed to rent that flat on, I think it was about the 10th of June, but I didn't want to start the contract till the 1st of July. So there's 3 weeks he's lost, and then we go in on the 1st of July. I know this place was on the market for at least 3 or 4 weeks before that, because we went to view it 3 weeks before that. So the voids really hurt the net profit on these ventures, and this is where you've got to explain yourself over to landlords, and you've got to start getting the numbers out and trying to drag it back to the net return that they get. Make them aware of their problems, make them aware of these losses in income that they get, that they're not going to get when they're working with yourself. On top of the tenant finder's fees, quite a lot of landlords still use estate agents for management, so there's no need for a management company. At the end of the day, a management company will go in and check the property every 3 months and report back. We're going in weekly, sometimes twice a week, to clean these properties, and our cleaners are reporting back the condition of them. If they wish to have those reports, they can have them. No one will ask for them, trust me, but you can offer it. So it just gives them the confidence that we're doing exactly what the estate agents do. But guess what? We're not going to charge you for it. There's no management fee. We just pay you your rent every single month. And the final point is long term. This is a business for us. So as long as we're making profit out of it, we want you to profit from it. We want to be able to keep paying you, and as long as we're making money out of it, we're going to want it for as long as possible, as long as you're comfortable with it, and always be dropping in that as long as you're comfortable with it, especially around the refurbs and the length of terms, because sometimes you might think going in with 5 years rent guarantee is a great idea, but what happens if they're thinking, oh, I want to sell this in 2.5 years time? They're thinking, oh, that's not going to work for me because I've got to commit to 5 years. So always be open to flexibility, but always sort of hammer down that, listen, I want to rent this for as long as I want. And if, let's say, for example, you want to sell this property, well, if it's working for me, Mr. Landlord, I'll buy it from you. Why would I give up on a successful business venture? So not only partnering with me do you get more income, guaranteed rent, a better looked after property, but you've also got your buyer when you decide to sell. And guess what? There's no estate agent fees involved in that either, because we're already together. So there's just loads and loads of benefits. So they're the magic 8. No voids, clean weekly, refurbed, end of term refurbishments, no more, no tenant finance fees, no damages, and long-term contracts. So 8 key points there. The next point, now if you're going to run it on serviced accommodation, and they're a landlord and they're not running their properties through a business, so they're running them as a personal portfolio, then there is an avoidance of Section 21 tax, Section 24 tax. Section 24 tax. So at the minute, the landlord tax, Section 24 tax, basically means if you're running it through your personal business, and this is why a lot of people now invest in companies, if you run them as a self-employed sort of landlord, then you cannot offset the mortgage interest. So you're paying tax on the full rental value. So say if it was £500 a month you were getting, you're paying, and your mortgage was £200, you're not paying the tax on the £300, you're paying the tax on the £500. So as you can imagine, landlords with huge portfolios and decent rental incomes, this becomes quite a lot of money. So what we have to do is, or what we can do is Section 24, because it's no longer a tenancy income, it becomes a trading income. Now the only difference here is you will have to fluctuate the payments, because trading income has to be a different amount each month. So you couldn't pay a fixed rent of say £500 a month for the next 5 years, because that is tenancy income. So you could agree with them that you would pay fluctuating amount of income, and therefore it's trading income for them. This is where the sort of managed side of things comes in for me, and where I kind of hit home with the sort of trying to partner with them, whereby we run it as a partnership and we sort of have an agreement on who takes what slice of the trading income, and therefore they can avoid the Section 24 tax. This, again, when you know what you're talking about, when you're hitting them with these options, they get to decide how they want to run it, but ultimately you're giving them the options. So it allows them to save tax potentially. So it just depends on the setup. But a lot of people now are moving into these limited company structures. So maybe that's not relevant for that. So, but there's sort of eight plus a bonus point there that I've just stuck to religiously, and I don't go down the corporate route. Everything I talk about is contractors. Now, if you haven't got any contractors and you haven't got any SAs, these are the type of people that you will get through your books. You're on my program. This is how I'm going to teach you to set things up. This is how I'm going to teach you to go through and find these type of people and advertise for these type of people. So HR managers, travel coordinators for businesses, directors, PAs, and even directors themselves, if they're little, one-man band or sort of 2 or 3 man band type operation, they're the ones going to be booking accommodation for their staff, for their teams, when they're doing projects in your cities or around your cities. And this story works very well for me. Everyone's doing the corporate let thing, and it just, the estate agents get it day in, day out. The landlords get it day in, day out on open rent. But the contractor story, it's a true story. It's how you're going to run your SAs, and ultimately it is who you're going to be filling your SAs with. And later down the line, once you've sort of agreed the contract, you will start maybe mentioning things like, just to let you know, so just in case you scroll on the internet and you see your property advertised on booking.com or Expedia, this is where we advertise to try and fill in any gap days that we don't have from the contractors. Ultimately, we want to make as much money from the property as possible to make it a successful venture for us and therefore a successful venture for you. So in order to do that, we don't really want any gap days. So if you do see it, don't be alarmed. Everything I've explained before still happens, and we also, whether they're contractors or guests, we verify them, we get them to sign contracts, we get damage deposits off them, etc. And and that solves the problem. I don't tend to go into it in too much detail, in all honesty. I tend to just keep it at the beginning, go through the 8 bullet points, and then only towards the end of it, I do just mention that HR managers typically find their first booking on places like booking.com, Expedia, TripAdvisor. Never mention Airbnb. Airbnb is a curse word. It's been slated in the press so much for trashing properties. Landlords just associated with stag do's and hen do's and problems. So stay away from the word Airbnb. And then you just go through, just constantly going through your benefits again and again and again. Construction workers, and it's a powerful story and it gets results. This is how I've done it. This is how I've got all my results throughout the whole time I've done this, and it's a hugely powerful strategy that you can pull off. So Get after it, start making the phone calls, learn the magic 8 points. I'll go over them once again. Number 1, no voids. Number 2, cleaned weekly. Number 3, we will refurbish your property. Number 4, there will be no end of term refurbishment. Number 5, any damage caused by a guest we will fix. Number 6, there's no tenant finder's fees. Number 7, there's no management fees. And number 8, it's a long-term contract we're looking for. So when you put all those together, Mr. Landlord, you're going to make more money, and ultimately that's what we want for you, and we want it to be a total hassle-free solution as well. You can be involved as much as you want or as little as you want. We can report as much as you want or as little as you want. In my experience, they just give you the property, they give you the keys. As long as you're paying your rent on time, they're not bothered. And it's a hugely powerful way for us to start making some serious cash and acquiring a lot of property quickly. So hope that helps. Get after it. 15 viewings a week's your target. Start hitting this message up on all your platforms, all your social medias. Stop with the company bullshit that everyone else is doing. Contractors, contractors, contractors. It works. It's worked very well for me. It's going to work for you. Take care, everyone. Speak soon.